Take a look at this video just coming in as Russian drones and missiles killed at least 10 civilians in Ukraine in nighttime attacks. That is according to local officials, with 7 deaths reported in the capital of Kyiv, where emergency crews raced to find people believed to be trapped under the rubble of a partially collapsed apartment building. You see it right there on your screen. Again, this video here just coming into our newsroom. Russia did fire 352 drones and decoys overnight, as well as 11 ballistic missiles and 5 cruise missiles. That's according to Ukraine's Air Force. Air defenses intercepted or jammed about 339 drones and 15 missiles before they could reach those targets. Now, we also know that Iran's foreign minister had some strong words of warning against the U.S. as he did visit Russia in the hours following the American strikes on those Iranian nuclear facilities. Today, as I mentioned, he is in Russia for a visit with President Putin. Putin saying during that meeting here a short time ago, quote, "This is an absolutely unprovoked aggression against Iran. It has no basis or justification." I want to discuss that portion of this as there is a lot of talk about it. Let's bring in Dr. Hannah Kassab, an assistant professor for security studies at East Carolina University. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and discuss this a little bit further.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I did want to ask, these strikes by the U.S. on Iranian nuclear facilities, do they kind of risk putting Russia and China a little bit more against the U.S. overall?
Absolutely. It's a great opportunity for China and Russia to sucker the United States into another conflict, a conflict that will be extremely difficult to achieve any political strategic goals in the region. There are common interests between Russia, China, and Iran, strategic interests, and that is the destruction of American hegemony or leadership, the American order as we know it since the fall of the Soviet Union. This has been a long time coming, since the 1990s, when Russia felt increasingly insecure due to the fall of the Soviet Union as the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. And so Russia and China are basically coming together with Iran and North Korea and Venezuela. That's another country that I think a lot of people just simply ignore because it doesn't really present a military threat to the United States. And so when you think about that, it's going to be in the interests of China and Russia to get Iran, to get the United States involved in Iran. And maybe that's why we saw Iran, the foreign minister or a representative of Iran going to Russia, trying to encourage maybe more Russian aggression in Ukraine, possibly launching an invasion through Belarus. I've heard things going on that way. There's also the idea of China bringing in planes into Iran, which is alarming to me. These cargo planes coming into Tehran from China. What are they carrying? I don't know. I'd like to know. Gordon Chang said it was possibly nuclear weapons, which makes me increasingly worried. And so all of these things are basically the essential notion here for the viewers is not to look at Iran and the United States, but look at the United States versus these 3 or 4 or 5 opponents that I just mentioned here.
Talking a little bit more about that, you talked about the deliveries there from China over to Iran and the question as to whether those are possibly nuclear weapons. And we heard from Russia's former president, who posted very publicly on social media just yesterday, saying that other countries would be willing to provide Iran with those nuclear weapons. And I did want to ask you, and I think I know your take here, is that realistic and is it overly concerning right now as we discuss all of this?
I mean, why wouldn't it be realistic? I mean, the thing is, China and Russia, they need to prop up the Iranian regime. Without Iran, there'll be the drone supply to Russia will be disrupted. And most importantly, if Iran somehow collapses, then that's the oil supplies to China will be disrupted, and that's going to cause chaos for China and for Russia. So to disrupt that supply, it doesn't make any sense. So China needs to ensure that Iran is in its corner, it's on its side. And so we must understand that the whole core of all of this is China and its relationship to Iran and Russia. And China needs Russia and Iran to be weak, because that's how you call the shots. You create dependencies out of these countries. So when you need them, they will say yes, of course, whatever you want. And so when it comes to, I think it's altogether realistic to think that these supplies, the cargo ships, the cargo planes, they could very well be carrying materials that will hurt American soldiers. And we have to be extremely cognizant of that situation. And again, China needs to prop up these regimes. The problem is not Iran per se, it is Iran. But the main issue, like the main behind all of this, is a powerful China that seeks to overtake the United States as the world leader.
As we look at this post right here coming in from Bloomberg, it has a little bit more of that quote that I read a bit earlier, as Putin said during his meeting with Iran's foreign minister, quote, "This is an absolutely unprovoked aggression against Iran. It has no basis or justification." As we talk about that quote itself, does that indicate overall that Russia might be sliding more toward Iran's side than the U.S.? We do know that President Trump and Vladimir Putin have had his public spats here over the past, I would say, several months, but it appears that they had kind of mended those fences. Is that now another issue that's going to pop up here as you have Putin making these comments publicly?
Yeah, I really don't give any credence to anything in terms of what Russia and, repairing U.S.-American relations. They're on our side now. They will never be on our side. They have their own ideas of what they want to see in the world. They have a Russia first strategy, and so they're going to do what's in their interests. And right now, what that is to ensure that Iran is protected. They don't want to be isolated any further. And this, the weaker that Russia is, the weaker that Iran is, they understand that they need to be together with China. And so the problem is kind of coming together and like really, creating a bond that ensures their protection of their interests, because they have their own designs and they want to reshape the system to what matches the American system. They want to reshape the American system into something that is more conducive to their survival and power, especially with regard to the United States. So the United States is the main problem. The United States is keeping them back from achieving their goals, Iran's goals in the Middle East, Russia's goals in Eastern Europe, and China's goals in the South China Sea with Taiwan. So we have to think about it as a block.
All right, Dr. Hana Kassab, thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to join us and help break everything down. We covered a lot of bases here, but anything else that you want to make sure to mention before I let you go?
Yes, I do believe it's important that the United States and the policy makers of the United States understand that this conflict, so Napoleon said, never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. So China sees that the United States is going to get involved in Iran, possibly going through some regime change endeavor. I feel like that's what's going to happen. But the important thing to note is the road to Tehran is through Beijing. So if you want change in the Middle East through Russia, you want to ensure that China is contained. And so by destabilizing China, by not doing business in China, by going back to that Cold War situation, containing Chinese power is essential. So don't get drawn into this regime change issue. The Iranian people may or may not take the United States side in this endeavor. It's important to note what happened in 79 and 80 when they coalesced around the regime. We don't want that to happen again. And so if you want regime change, just maybe morally support the Iranian people and just leave it at that.